What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Fitness for Life podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Lohr, and today I have with me Alex McBrairty. Alex, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Jackson. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. Alex, the way I typically like to start things out is just, can you tell me, a little bit about your story, how you got into training, how you got into fitness, what you're doing now, and kind of what led to all that. I know it's a short podcast, but I like to hear. I think it's good for people to hear different stories because everybody comes from a different place.
Absolutely. I'll try to expedite it as much as I can because it certainly was and continues to be a journey.
Yeah.
I grew up as the overweight kid, low self-esteem, super shy, bullied in school, struggled, didn't really apply myself. And so what got me started in fitness was my own personal transformation. My senior year in high school, I lost nearly 100 pounds. And
Wow.
set out on this journey. Best way I can summarize it was to not hate myself anymore. And to kind of become the person that I would have quite literally sold myself to the devil to trade places with when I was overweight and kind of watching my life pass me by. And then, so that led to my personal interest in fitness. It wasn't until after college, I went to University of Michigan. I got my degree in psychology because I found understanding people and really by proxy understanding myself to be a very interesting topic. And however, still had no idea what I wanted to do with that degree because you really have to go academics or therapy, and I didn't want to do either of those. So I graduated with that degree, but still no idea what I wanted to do. And at that point, friends and family were like, you know what, Alex, you spend all your time in the gym anyways. You might as well get paid for it. Go be a personal trainer. And at the time, I was, 21, 22 years old. That was good enough logic for me. So I got certified, started at a local gym back in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I'm originally from, and fell in love with it immediately. Just being able to help people kind of make that same transformation, not only physically similar to me, but also and more so mentally, with being able to pull that psych background into helping people become the person they actually want to be, the person that they would no longer rather trade places with somebody else with. And so that's kind of steered the trajectory of my career. I've been doing it now 11 years. On Monday, we're celebrating 10 years of 18 Fitness, which is my coaching. And it's been an amazing ride ever since.
Wow. That's fantastic. Do you feel like there was any outside of, just that? Well, let me ask a better question. What did it take that senior year of high school? What was it that spurred that change for you? Was it multiple instances, or was there kind of this one rock bottom moment or profound moment that changed things for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's probably a few pivotal moments throughout my entire life that I could really point to. Many of them actually happened after my transformation. So to answer your question, what led to this time being the time that I was successful? Because I had tried, throughout my entire childhood with intervention from my parents, with intervention from doctors, I had tried to lose the weight. Varying degrees of success, right? Kind of the yo-yo thing. You lose a couple pounds, you get relaxed, old habits come back, weight comes back, start all over again. I did that whole song and dance many times over. And I've thought a lot about what was that pivotal moment going into my senior year of high school, was the summer of following my junior year, where it really clicked for me. And I think it was really two things in particular. One, comes as to no surprise, there was now a girl in the picture. And I wanted to kind of improve myself because I personally wanted to be someone that she could show off to people. And I didn't feel like I was that person. So that was a big driving motivator. It was my first romantic relationship. So that was something that I had not experienced yet. And so that was a powerful motivator for me. But then in addition to that, because I think that alone probably wouldn't have sold it for me, I got to the point where all of my friends were applying to colleges, getting accepted into colleges, kind of planning their future after high school. And I knew I was smart and was capable of things, but I never applied myself because of the low self-esteem, because of the shyness, whatever. And I think at this point I had reached just enough maturity level. By no means would I call myself mature, but just enough where I had the realization if I didn't change something about this now, it was going to be the rest of my life. And that scared me. So I think it was a combination of those two things, the realization that I had to do something now or else that was never going to happen, and wanting to do it for something other than just my own personal vanity sake that really gave me the drive to make it happen.
I'm curious, how long did that take? Like that initial transformation, did it span just a few months, years? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I lost about 87 pounds in 15 months.
Okay.
But
Wow.
it's that's fast and it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's extra information. But and what I have to make sure to reiterate is it consumed my entire life at that time. So I was a senior in high school. I pretty much gave up my social life. I didn't hang out with my friends anymore. I worked a job, and so exercise, school, and work was my entire life. I would work out 2 times a day. I had a job so I could leave school early because I got school credit for work. And I would go to the gym. I'd run anywhere from 2 to 4 miles. And then if I had work, I'd go do that. If I didn't, I'd come home for a little bit. And then I was doing martial arts at the time, some MMA.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go train at the gym for 2 hours. And then after that, I would go back to the gym and lift weights for another hour. So it was 2 or 3 times a day of just intense exercise, which, again, only as a 16-year-old could you ever get away with that level of intensity and not just completely wreck yourself.
Yeah.
So the time period and the circumstances really allowed me to give my all into this, which I think was necessary for me at the time. Like, I think I needed to go all in to have that dramatic transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And so 15 months later, was able to actually graduate at 87 pounds lighter.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. With that in mind, you say, hey, it was very intense. You abandoned social life for a time. What circumstances would a client have to be in if they came to you, and what circumstances would warrant a similar kind of approach? If someone came to you and was like, this is what I'm feeling, this is how much weight, I really feel like I need to lose a massive amount of weight in a small amount of time. What circumstances would that be something where you would be like, okay, we can do it. Here's how.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, ironically enough, if someone came to me and they said, I want a similar dramatic transformation, I would do everything that's smart. And again, the circumstances, I had no responsibilities. I had a part-time job. I was still in high school, so I wasn't paying bills. Like, I was living at home with my parents, and I could quite literally commit all of my time to this. I could, even me now with a profession in fitness, having the schedule to be able to go to the gym all the time, I don't even think I could accomplish that now with the responsibilities that I have. And I'm child, I'm not married. Like, I have, as far as an adult goes, I have as much free time as anyone. And still, I don't think I'd be able to accomplish that. So it's really about now reframing how people are thinking about the entire journey as a whole. Because we all want to get there as quickly as possible. Like that, natural, that makes sense. And one thing that I learned and still learn to this day was, and this is the funny thing, I thought that if I lost all the weight, everything would be perfect. And I quickly realized that things were a lot better, but it was far from perfect. Because I still had so much to learn about myself. I still had so much that I needed to do in my life to get to a point where I was really confident and satisfied with who I was. And so even though I lost the weight very quickly, the transformational journey still took just as long. It took years. It took much more manageable work in the long term. So I try to instill that in people that come to me now, which is, I understand that you want this fast, and it will definitely make you happier to achieve this goal for yourself. But whether you lose all the weight fast or whether it takes time, the journey that you ultimately want, the end goal that you ultimately want, is going to take long. So you might as well spread the weight loss out so that it's more manageable and you're not miserable.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And, I would say the same thing. If somebody's coming to me and they're like, hey, I want to lose all this weight really fast, I'm going to do the same thing. Hey, why do you want to, lose it very fast? What's, who's holding the gun to your head kind of thing? Right. And what do we need to do to mentally take that off? So with that in mind, like, what modifications other than just the timeline, when someone isn't able to commit all that time, what modifications are you making to make it more accessible to them. Where, hey, time is a factor. I can't just make fitness my life for 15 months. What does that look like?
Absolutely. That's a great question because we're all busy. We all have
Yeah.
obstacles. Um, and I think the starting point for us, so what we do is, with my background in psychology, is we really focus on what are the beliefs that we have about not only ourselves and who we are, but about how we're interpreting this journey as a whole. And it's very, very important that people understand what the end goal actually is. For me, I thought it was losing all the weight.
Mm.
In reality, it was not hating who I was anymore. Which is why, even though I lost the weight very quickly, it still took me a long time to get to that point. And that may be similar for people that come see us, and maybe something totally different. But regardless, it's about helping them identify what that actually is. Because the interesting thing about fitness, and this is kind of my view, is fitness is not the end. Fitness is the means. It's people use it to transform themselves to get to a certain point, and fitness is just the medium that we use to get there. And so I think a lot of people, where they fall short is they mistake the process for the end goal, and they don't actually know what the end goal is. And so there's not the same drive or motivation because there's not the same clarity, and there's not the same level of perseverance and persistence when it gets challenging, because it always will get challenging. Yeah. So the first step is to figure out, what do we actually do? The vast majority of people have no idea what that actually is.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work involved in figuring that out, and a lot of exploring, a lot of personal exploration. We use a term in our program called radical introspection, which is this ability. Introspection, of course, is the ability to reflect and evaluate our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, our behaviors. And radical in the sense that we have to be able to do that even when we don't like the answers. Because I know a lot of us will shut that off when it's not good. Right? Our shortcomings, our mistakes, our failures, whatever it is, our barriers, we will often ignore that stuff and find things to cover it up, right? Supplements to overcome what's actually just poor sleeping habits, or trying super regimented diets when in reality we aren't able to control our emotions, and so we stress eat or we eat out of emotion. So it's a lot of covering the symptoms instead of getting to the root cause, which is ultimately where the transformation is.
Yeah. I think as someone who works primarily with, people who are either entering retirement or already there, I feel like on that end, I have it easy as a coach, because there's a little bit of deeper self-understanding and wisdom more often than not, with people who have, more experience, more years behind them. They're less willing to kind of put aside those thoughts, and because they're being faced with their realities a little bit more each day.
Right.
And so, I often get hey, I want to be out of pain because this reason, or I want to be out of pain because I want to be able to, skip with my granddaughter, or I want to be able to still be my grandchild's hero. Like that's the very common one. I still want to be able to be active and an active participant in their lives. And so that's a very easy, like, yeah, we can do that. Like, you can go deeper with the why behind that. But that's, to most people, I think that's pretty straightforward, with that why.
Similarly, though, or rather conversely, it makes total sense. Older population, they have a little bit more practice reflecting. They're coming across some very deep realities that is forcing that introspection. Is there another side of that with individuals who fear that it's too late to make changes?
Absolutely. And that's really my mission within my community, and those who I speak to, is showing, like, I have clients who start at 80 years old. And it's like, okay, just because you didn't start way back then actually makes it, you're going to make that much more progress at the beginning, because you don't have this starting point where you've done, XYZ for years and years and years. You haven't gotten to feel the effects of what that's like. And oftentimes, as long as you're taking care of your recovery and putting the right things in place,
Right.
you know, that's, you can get a lot more significant results right off the bat, you know, first 6 to 8 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that I find often people underestimate, their ability to make changes at that age. And so, yeah, 100%. This happens all the time.
And it's so interesting. We were messaging about identity earlier.
Mm,
Um, and that's why I asked that question about people who find it, older people who find it hard to get started so late, because there's now so many more years of ingrained habits and routines and behaviors, which, for those who might be unfamiliar, our identity is essentially a compilation of all of our behaviors, our thoughts, our beliefs about the world and ourselves that come together into the story that we write about who we are as a person. And the challenging thing that I find with fitness, and I'm sure all coaches see this, is fitness is this weird purgatory where it can allow us to rewrite a lot of those habits and those routines to write a new identity for ourselves, whatever we
yeah.
want, which is why we talk about in our program, who do you want to be? What's the end goal here? So we know what story we're trying to write. But it's also this weird purgatory where you're undoing aspects of who you've always been, but have not quite yet gotten to the point where you can embrace the new thing. And I find that that's a big struggle for people at any age, is this in between of, I no longer am doing the things that make me feel comfortable, but I'm no longer embracing these new things. And I'm kind of trapped in this weird purgatory of sorts.
Yeah. So what do you say to the person who's stuck in that, or not who's stuck in that purgatory, but who's going through that, or who's interested in making that change, about, that in between?
Yeah, so it's dependent on the person. So it's a little bit easier if someone's done it before. So if someone has
Right.
got shape or has been in shape in the past, maybe they fell off for a little while and they're getting back to it, they at least have an idea of what it's like.
Right.
They have a vision in their head. They know what the feeling is. They know how great they felt. So there is some beacon that I'm working back towards that. It's a little bit more difficult for someone who's never been in shape, because they don't have a reality to cling to. It's almost entirely faith based. This is how I'm expecting to feel. This is how people are telling me I'm going to feel. And I just feel miserable when I'm working out right now. So I don't know what they're talking about. So it's a little bit more difficult in that sense. And regardless of past experience or not, one of the biggest things that we've seen, and what a lot of the research shows as well, with any type of major behavioral change, is having a community of people
Mm.
who are not only doing and working towards the same goals, but in some cases, in addition to, have already achieved it and are living it as sort of that example, giving us a chance to live vicariously through their experiences, to give us a glimpse of what's in store for us in the future, can help keep us excited, keep us motivated, and keep us hopeful that what we're doing is actually going to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Because not having, I can certainly see not having that person, or not having, if it's just the coach, sure, you've been through this transformation. You can say that all you want, but if you're the person that is living that out, it's a lot harder to say, oh, I know there's people who've done this, and there's people who have done this who are still a part of the community and doing it. Because like you said, fitness itself is a lifelong tool, that we use as that method, that means, not the end. Right.
And especially, you made a great point too, you alluded to it, which is, if it's only the coach that they have as their community, their vicarious experience, that's great. Everyone should have that, except, and we get this often, sometimes we're so far removed from the challenges, like living the challenges. Obviously, I was overweight my entire childhood. I lost nearly 100 pounds. And that story can resonate with people who are struggling with something similar, except that was 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I've done so many other things in terms of physical challenges. I've done marathon, I've done bodybuilding shows, I've done other things. And so now people see that version of me, especially if they never knew me then. They see me as
Right.
this person now. And it's easy to write that as being so far removed from the reality of that it doesn't have the same camaraderie as someone who's going through it more recently or currently. So a good mix of both is key. Someone, the coach being, not to get too cliche, like the sage who can kind of predict the path for you because they've traveled it, they know what you're going to do. That's great. But then also having those allies who are in the trenches with you going through it can kind of create that duo of keeping you motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting. I did want to talk a little bit more about identity in, going back to that person that you are becoming. You had shared a post and talking about like, hey, like it's not. I'm not looking at the exact wording, but basically like, hey, you're not being untrue to who you are. If fitness was never a part of your life, or if change was this particular change in the habits that you're changing about what you do, if those things were not originally a part of your life, you're not being untrue to who you are. You're becoming true to the person that you want to become. Can you talk to me a little bit more about like the mentality of accepting that and how that can affect you?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely goes back to this idea of this weird purgatory we get stuck in. So we all have to go through life with a sense of self, a sense of who we are as a person. And we figure that out in adolescence, right? Going through our teenage years, we're trying to figure out our place in the world. Hopefully by college or towards the end of college, we have some idea of what that is. Some people, unfortunately, never quite figure it out. And we all know people like this that kind of constantly struggle with that sense of identity. And so it's important to recognize that every day our behavior is either reaffirming our identity or retraining us towards a new one. There is no in between. So we either are solidifying something that already exists or we're building something new. And oftentimes, unfortunately, what happens is the reaffirming of behavior is the easier path because it's our comfort zone and it makes us feel good. Even if it's a hindrance to everything that we want to achieve, even if it's getting takeout, even if it's watching Netflix instead of going to the gym, all the things that are actively detracting from what we want, it feels good because it serves the role of reaffirming who we are. To layer that, an extra challenge is that other people will point out that we're different, right?
Yeah.
Family, if you're used to going out to eat with friends and family or drinking or whatever the case is, and suddenly you start to turn that away or turn that down, you get the comments, oh, it's just one night, like, don't worry about it, or, oh, you're no fun anymore, or, whatever the case is, we never see you anymore. And that can be hard because then not only do we have this internal struggle, but now we have this external reminders that can sometimes make us feel like a fraud or like we're fake or we're somebody we're not. And that can confuse us because we are building something new. So it's not who we were, but then our own beliefs, unless we challenge them in the comments from others, and often, unfortunately, those closest to us who know us the best are often the ones making these comments.
Yeah.
It can cause us to feel like the new version is not the real version, even though it is, and it can be.
Yeah, man, that's powerful because I think part of it is that self-talk, right? When other people are saying things, it's very difficult to push that out of your mind and get into a place where, oh, okay, I'm not going to listen to this person because I'm trying to do something that I haven't yet done, or I'm trying to become someone that I'm not yet there. And so they don't know that person yet. And so they can't speak into that person's life quite the same as they could to the person that I was when I started this. Is that from
Absolutely.
your perspective? Yeah, fair.
And a good analogy I like to use to kind of summarize this entire point, and really the solution for it is, we've all heard the adage of life being a game, right? Except if that's true, there's no rules, there's no scoring system, there's no teams. So it's just everyone has to go out on the field and make it up for themselves. People fall prey is they play that game based on somebody else's rules.
Yeah.
And they're going to score in a way that's not meaningful to them. They're living their life based on somebody else's expectations. And this whole process, and why I love fitness, is in the self-discovery process, is we are defining what our rules actually are and how or what it means to score for ourselves. And this creating a new identity is ultimately breaking away from other rules that don't mean anything to us and are stepping into the game that we actually want to play.
I like it. I don't think I've heard it phrased quite like that before. And it makes it very clear that you're like, okay, I can make that change and be okay with it and not, feel bad about what I'm leaving behind as a result of that. I do want to get into something a little bit different. Hopefully, we have just a few more minutes. We want to get into this. You are not only, do you do this work and you do really excellent work with people, but you're a dancer. You really enjoy dance. How did that come about? When did you find that? And talk to me about what it does for you.
Absolutely. So I took my first dance lesson in November of 2017. And I got into it. Again, it ties into this continuous journey of self-discovery and kind of becoming the person that I want to become. Part of the reason I did it, I always found it, bachata dancing in particular, which for those who might be unfamiliar, it's like a slower, sensual salsa dance, I always found it incredible to watch. It looked cool. Like I liked smooth the guys looked when they were doing it. And I was like, I wish I could do that. But I was always afraid. I didn't exactly grow up with a lot of rhythm. And so just the idea of dance really terrified me. And so that kept me from trying it for a very long time. But then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to try it. I'm going to see what happens. And immediately fell in love with it. It was a new challenge for me. It was a new skill to learn. It was a new just experience. And I did that off and on for ever since. And it wasn't until I'm originally from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I just moved out to New Jersey last summer. Yeah. And when I moved out here to be with my girlfriend, but I didn't know anybody else. And so I embraced dance as sort of the way to build a social life out here. And it's been incredible for that. I dance multiple times a week. I've made some fantastic friends doing it. And now I do it more frequently. And it's funny, I would never have called myself a dancer until now because of how frequently I'm doing it and how much I'm invested in it. But it's amazing in so many ways. In a few in particular that I want to point out. One is just as a physical activity. It's a way to get active. It's a way to, quote unquote, exercise without feeling like you're exercising, but in a way that also creates a sense of social connection, right? So being in that community of people that we talked about earlier. And in a unique way, and I try to instill this in all of the members in our community, is the best way to achieve lifelong fitness success, weight maintenance, maintaining a healthy weight. Find an activity that you love that moves your body, and you do it with other people. Yeah. Because if you can combine those elements, now you're not just going for a hike, you're going for a hike with friends. Now you're not just, this, that, or the other. You're doing it in a fun environment with people that you look forward to seeing. And so if I had to pull the biggest thing it's given me, it's that. Yeah. So this extra physical activity that's great for you. I do want to share one other odd thing that I discovered in dancing, which is especially partner dancing. You get much better at proprioception and where your body is in space in relation to other people. Not only your partner, but when you're at a social with a packed dance floor, where you and your partner are in relation to other people around you. Yeah. I've noticed that I don't stub my toe on things anymore.
That's hilarious. I love that.
Or really just bump myself into anything in my environment anymore. Presumably because I have that better awareness of just where my body is in relation to the things around me. Yeah. Which I find is pretty neat and cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Man, Alex, I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all that. If people are looking for more, to hear more from you, where can they find you?
Absolutely. Best place to find me, head over to Instagram at _18fit_. I also have a newsletter that I publish to a few times a week related to things with mindset and shifting your beliefs and kind of just making your way through life and figuring out who you want to be. And that's on 18fit.substack.com. Check it out.
Cool.
But Jackson, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate your time. For those listening at home, appreciate you guys tuning in with us, and we'll see you guys next time.